Hello, I'm Nobby Clark, welcome to my workshop. I'd like to show you my latest workshop project. I've just completed this. This is called a finger plate. The object of the finger plate is to hold round material for cross drilling in this V-groove here, or clamping down small bits of material, flat material for drilling or for filing, or holding material firmly in place while you use a belt grinder or something of that nature. I had initially decided to build one of these from a kit that you could buy, which comes with all the metal parts required, with the plans and instructions. But on looking at the kit, I realised that the base for me was just a little bit too small, and I think the base was about 3 inches square, and I wanted a base slightly larger. So I bought a piece of hot rolled steel. This is about 4 inches square. It's slightly shorter than 4 inches in one direction because being hot rolled, it had a rounded edge on one side, and I wanted to sort of machine this square, but the dimensions are 4 inches by just a fraction under. I would rather have liked to have fly cut the surface of this, but being hot rolled, it's got a horrible hard crust to the outside surface, and my fly cutter has a high-speed steel tool in it, and this was just blunted almost straight away. So in the end I machined it with an end mill, which is given a perfectly smooth surface. Actually quite a nice machine effect to it as well. I quite like that. Anyway, with the kit, they supply a piece of square material which you machine into this sort of upside down L shape, and then you drill through the top to hold drill guides. But to my mind, the size of drill guides that they suggest to me just seemed too small, really, to give you a good range of options. I made the plate here to hold the drill guide out of two pieces of steel, and I drilled this for 1/2 inch. I've made initially 2 drill guides, one in 1/4 inch and one in 1/8 inch. But you can obviously make extras of these in whatever size you require for a given job. When you've made the bracket here and you've drilled that out and the drill guide is put in place, you then this has got to be firmly clamped into the mill vise, and you've got to lock the mill vise down the mill down very firmly. You drill through the guide, through the base here, so that you've got a clearance for the drill itself. And when I've drilled this in the base in 1/4 inch, obviously that could be made to a larger size if required, but I think initially this is probably going to be used mostly for fairly small drills. Anyway, once you've drilled that through without moving anything on the milling machine at all, you then cut the V groove. I used a 90-degree end mill to cut this through. In the kit they suggest cutting first a tiny groove with an end mill through here to give you sort of an undercut for the 90-degree end mill to cut into. But I didn't didn't really find that was really necessary. It's cut a very accurate groove here, and as I'm not going to be using tiny pieces of round stock in here, they're not going to go right down into the base of the V groove anyway, so I didn't really feel that was really necessary. So the operation would be that you put your piece of round stock in here. I made this so it would take material up to sort of around about 5/8 of an inch in diameter. The round stock would drop into the V groove here. That would be held perfectly in position, and then you use the finger over the top of this to clamp the material firmly in place while you drill through. The finger plate can be used for a variety of other uses as well. If you were drilling sort of flat stock as well, that could be clamped down to the base here over this sort of V cut out here, and then the finger would hold that in place while you drill through it. I've made a little V cut in here also so that you give a clearance for the drill. You notice I've got well, the jacking screw at the back here to hold the finger in place. There's a screw thread here also if you wanted to use it the opposite way round, so that could be moved just to the back. As the finger's going to be held in a number of different angles, the kit suggests making an additional plate over the top with a rounded section to it, but I thought an easier way of doing this was to make a washer which is sort of half round, so that will just drop down and that can be sort of clamped at any angle you like. I noticed that some people that have made these have only made the knob part at the top here, and then they've used a piece of studding of the appropriate thread size. I opted to make the whole thing, so that's machined out of one piece of steel. Just make the whole jack screw here, very long thread and a fine thread. So it's all one piece with a 1/4 inch BSF fine thread here, and I've inserted a little piece of brass in the end so that you don't mar the surface of the plate itself, although it's a very hard material, so this is very likely to happen. I made the stud as well, rather than using a piece of ready-made studding, and I've just made it as a stud so that can be screwed into the bottom of the end of the thread here, so that will just drop into place. I opted not to super glue or Loctite that in place because I have some other plans for the plate as well, so I want this to be removable quite easily, so that it can be just finger tight locked in, and that will work perfectly. And of course these could be made of any length you like according to the material you're going to use in it. And you can make these with knurled ends, make them as decorative as you like. Some people have made these things out of brass, but they would look nice, but I thought we'd just make the whole thing out of steel. It looks more business-like that way. So it's sort of turned out in the end really nice, and when I spent quite a number of days on and off making this, quite a number of hours involved, and really enjoyed making it. There's so many different interesting operations to making this. using the milling machine, the lathe, so some sort of handwork as well. So it gives you all sorts of sort of fun operations in the workshop to make something like this. I think it's going to be very, very useful. I did test this morning. Put a piece of round aluminium in here, clamped it in position, and drilled it both with the 1/8 and the 1/4 drill guide, and it works perfectly. I've got a sort of perfectly round hole in both pieces of material. Works extremely well. As I say, I've sort of planned some other modifications to this. I mean, in the kit they show the cutout here as a square cutout, but I thought that looked quite nice as a V shape, corresponding to the V shape in the finger, and it showed the cutout here in all 3 sides of the plate. I opted not to do that. I thought we would just start by making the cutout here first, leaving these sides to modify later on according to whatever I'm doing with the finger plate. Maybe that I sort of need a cutout in a different place, or the corner cutout, or whatever. All those things can be done to the plate at a later date as and when required. Well, I hope you enjoy the little video there. Hope this sort of quite useful to you. It's such a, I think it's going to be such a useful device, and I'm even using it on the bench drill as a means of guiding the drill very accurately through a piece of material, or for the extreme of accuracy, mounting it into the vise on the milling machine. One problem I did have initially with the vise on the milling machine is the jaws don't open up wide enough for this, but luckily the face plates of the jaws on the vise I have can be moved to the outer side of the fixed and moving jaw, which enabled me to hold this in place, which was essential because this obviously had to be held in the mill vise while I machined all the surfaces here to square it up, and of course to cut the V-groove as well. So I'm lucky to have a vise that can be adapted in this way. Well, anyway, thank you very much for joining me again in the workshop today, and thank you also for everyone who's kindly subscribed to my channel. The numbers are steadily increasing, and if there's anyone out there that hasn't subscribed, and I'd be delighted if you would. It's quite comforting to see the number of subscribers increase, and special thanks to anyone that's sent me comments on what I'm making, or advice on what I'm doing. If I'm doing things wrong, any advice you can give me is very gratefully received. Well, anyway, thanks again for joining me, and I hope to have another video for you very, very soon. Thank you so much. Bye bye for now.